Hi everyone. So our objective today is threefold. First, we want to determine which quarter Southern Water Corp should perform maintenance. Secondly, we examine the cost effectiveness of each unit. And lastly, we examine the price elasticity of both hard and soft water. Now, Southern Water Corp previously expressed interest on performing maintenance of Surgic in the first quarter. However, based on our analysis, quarter one would be the worst period to perform maintenance. Rather, our data shows that quarter four would be the ideal time period instead. First, quarter four has the least revenue out of all the quarters in the year. Now, keep in mind that when maintenance is performed, the entire revenue earned for that quarter is lost, and thus it would be ideal to perform maintenance in the quarter that has the least amount of revenue, which in our case is indeed quarter four. In other words, we would save a total of $16 million by performing maintenance in quarter four instead of quarter one. Now, when it comes to cost effectiveness, the average cost to produce all three units are all below the average water balancing market price, or WBMP, meaning that the water is being sold at a profit for all three units. Now, when it comes to price elasticity, hard water is inelastic. On the other hand, soft water is elastic, which means that it changes according to price. And thus, soft water is more of a core product for SWC, meaning that marketing efforts or pricing efforts should only be directed at soft water. As we can see in the chart on the left, we can see that Southern Water Corp tends to produce the highest revenue in quarter one. Now, keep in mind, as I mentioned before, that when maintenance is performed, the entire revenue earned for that quarter is lost. And thus, if we perform maintenance in the first quarter, we would lose the most revenue possible. In this case, it's $60.58 million. On the other hand, quarter four tends to have the lowest revenue for Surgic, in our case, $44.55 million. In other words, the question is, would you prefer to lose $60.58 million or $44.55 million? And crunching the numbers, we can see that we can save a total of $16 million just by performing maintenance in quarter four instead of quarter one. Now, some of you may be asking, why is there a difference in quarterly revenue? From the chart on the right, we'll see how changes in demand causes the shift in revenue. Here on this chart, you'll see both pricing and demand of water. In quarter four, specifically in October, you'll see that demand reached its lowest point. Now, as we learned in economics, as customer demand falls, the price that suppliers sells goods at also falls, and that's the reason why the WBMP price suddenly dips and remains low in quarter four. Since the WBMP price is lower in quarter four, it also explains why quarter four has the lowest revenue, because you're literally selling water at a much lower price. We contrast this with quarter one, that has the highest demand, which in turn means that they have the highest water selling price. Thus, it would be prudent to perform maintenance in quarter four when demand is lowest, due to the lower selling price. Now, you might be even questioning why does the demand fall like this? And that's actually due to the seasonality of the weather. Rain in Israel starts in around quarter four, around October or November, which is why the demand for water increases at that point. Now we examine the cost to produce water. It's important to note that all units were relatively profitable at the current market price by a considerable margin. The chart on the right compares the cost to produce to the average market price on a macro basis. As we can see, the chart shows us that all three units' cost to produce are below the water balancing market price, meaning that each megaliter of water sold will generate a profit. Specifically, Kutha will generate around $51.62 per megaliter sold on average. Surgic will generate $22.39 on average. and Jutic will generate $40.82 on average per megaliter sold. Now, again, I should emphasize that the numbers are, again, on average because of the seasonality. When there's differences in weather, stuff like that, the price, the profit will change during the year. Now, the question remains, are the units managing their cost effectively? If you look on the next slide, we examine if the units are achieving economies of scale. The chart below assesses the cost of production on the y-axis to the amount of water produced on the x-axis, and thus we'll see how costs change the more water that is produced. If you notice on the chart on the left, you'll see that the more water Kutha produces, the cheaper the costs are. And this demonstrates that Kutha is indeed achieving economies of scale as they spread more of their fixed costs over more liters of water produced. The chart in the middle also demonstrates that Surgic is achieving a good level of economies of scale. And so, despite having very high costs that influence and impacts its profitability, Surgic is actually managing its costs well. The last chart shows that Jutic is also achieving good economies of scale, just not at the same level as either Surgic or Kutha. We now examine the last objective, which is to examine the elasticity of both hard water and soft water to identify which product is more lucrative. The charts below assess price on the x-axis, while water produced on the y-axis, and thus we'll see how quantity sold changes relative to price. The chart on the right shows that for soft water, as price increases, the quantity purchased also increase, both demonstrating that Southern Water Corp is not only a supplier, but also that an elastic relationship does indeed exist for soft water. The chart on the middle, which represents hard water, demonstrates a different story. As prices change, the amount of quantity sold stays relatively the same. And this type of behavior demonstrates the inelasticity of hard water. The chart on the left shows that overall, the sale of water is elastic. Since the overall chart on the left, which is composed of both hard and soft water, has relatively the same shape as soft water, as well as having a certain degree of elasticity, that means that we can conclude that soft water is more of a core product for Southern Water Corp. And so what does that mean for the bottom line? Well, basically, pricing efforts or pricing changes, such as seasonality, are going to specifically impact soft water profitability. And so it would behoove Southern Water Corp to anticipate the impact of those changes to their profitability. Thank you.